the SM Media Podcast Network. Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Horse Racing Show. I'm Scott McPike. It is always a pleasure to be your host, and we are back. We are going to take a look at what has been quite a busy May, where quite a lot's been happening. We'll maybe start with the jumps, and we'll most of the show will be about the flat. To join me as always, it is a pleasure to welcome from the Scottish Daily Mail, Callum McClurkin. Callum, thanks very much again, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Hi there, yeah. End the jump season into the summer jump period, and it's mainly a little bit of flat now with the Guineas being done, and then we're into Derby time, next week. And then you've got Royal Ascot in the back of that, really. So all the big kind of summer ones, and then you'll have your high class 3-year-olds, hopefully mixing it with good open company. But yeah, it's been a promising enough start, I think, to the flat season. Seen quite a lot of new horses kind of coming out and looking the part. So we'll see how it all kind of aligns when they come down to Royal Ascot time.
Yeah, we will get a wee kind of like some big races. Obviously, we've had classics on both the English and ISC. We've had a lot with the Group 1, the Lockings. We've had some Royal Ascot and Epsom Clues, so we'll get into them later on. I think we have to start with Rachael Blackmore. That was announced, obviously, announced her retirement. I think one of the best jockeys, not just a female jockey, one of the best jockeys, certainly since she came on the scene. Just some of the... I don't think there's many jockeys that have won all 4 championship races at the Cheltenham Festival and then won a Grand National. Do you know what I mean? Just an incredible record, incredible honours list. Callum, first of all, obviously, in terms of her impact on the sport, massive what she done for the sport.
Massive, yeah, breaking barriers. The first woman to win a Grand National is the type of story that transcends the sport outside its racing bubble, which it's been very, very difficult to do. And she was thrust into the kind of limelight a bit uncomfortably at times. Dealt with it all in her stride, though. Saying that I just, Rachael Blackmore, really, I don't feel like, really anything. So, yeah, took that in her stride. And yeah, I mean, a really kind of golden 3 or 4 years in there for sure. Had her kind of equine science degree and went through the ranks. Jockey, took a risk coming over to Britain and kind of training there and thinking, well, can you get to like an apprentice mark 25, 30 winners, and then she goes and does what she does. So yeah, quite remarkable. Shark handling, Henny de Bromhead, key associations, and always very, very, very impressive when the big day came, which was really striking. And she was a character that punters loved. I mean, your kind of everyday punter would know who she is and would just back her blind. Frankie Dodori had that kind of weight, that kind of clout. Rachael Blackmore was the kind of jumps equivalent because of what she did. You kind of have to make kind of unprecedented history really for people outside the sport to really take notice of you. And it's an absolute hero in Ireland. Won kind of every kind of sports personality award going there. Won the sports personality award here for the international category. So yeah, I mean, it really did show the kind of power and impact that racing can have when you can break through that barrier.
And like some of the horses, obviously, like you mentioned Henry de Bromhead, like a lot of the horses that she had, like Bob Ollinger, obviously win 3 races at the Cheltenham Festival with them. Honeysuckle as well, like incredible. That's kind of where she burst on the scene for me, was Honeysuckle. I know Manel Ando, obviously, she won the Albert Bartlett, but the connection with Honeysuckle to win what she won with her as well, incredible partnership. Likes Envoy Allen as well, like just an incredible jockey. And is there a particular ride that sticks out to you, like where you thought she was just majestic on the day?
It's when Honeysuckle won the first Mares Hurdle. She won
Yeah, Benny did you?
Where she nips on the inside of Benny Dadu and shows brilliant racing skill, and that kind of turn of pace does the favourite Benny Dadu in. She holds on the line. That was a race-winning manoeuvre. Now, you could argue that Paul Tierney kind of lost it, and Robbie Power let her slip on the inside, but she had the tactical awareness to take that gap at the right time with the right pace and leave enough up the hill to hold off the favourite. So I mean that was a striking ride. That kind of showcased her talent and her judgment of pace. Bob Owens at the end of this festival, I mean, he had to be held up,
Yeah,
to get the trip delivered at the right time, to win. And yeah, in the big occasion, honeysuckle penalty kick, in kind of quite a lot of her races. But to keep her going and to kind of just leave enough in the tank for the next big day and things like that is a real skill and jockeyship, and I think that's what she kind of demonstrated all the time. Manila Times, who won that, was really big because the Grand National, it was fighting to kind of stay mainstream relevant. That was the kind of result where I think it was a relatively quiet sporting Saturday. That was a result that put it back in the back pages, and it's kept it really there.
yeah.
To be honest, because it's always had a presence. When I start editing kind of national newspapers at the back, racing can sometimes look as a bit of an inconvenience. You've got constant racing presence. Well, you're not in story copy, but in cards. You've got all these cards at the front of the book. So I mean that in football could take up quite a lot of your paper. So it does need something. Well, we've got the racing there because there's cards there.
Mm-hmm.
That's your racing. So it does take something of real special sporting merit to elevate it. And Rachael Blackmore doing that was definitely one of those things. What racing now needs to do is not let her legacy pass her by.
What do you think's next for her? Do you think because I don't think she'll be one of those that will just completely disappear from the limelight. I think she will for obvious reasons because of her, as you said, the clout that she has, the kind of name that she has in the game. Media's been mentioned. I'd imagine she'll maybe look at kind of her own what she wants to do kind of personally in her life, which is again totally kind of fair on her part as well. Media's been mentioned, training, bloodstock, she can do anything she wants to do.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. I mean, you'll have options, and she might kind of take a kind of step back and analyze them all, and then
Mm-hmm.
do what she does best. Maybe media and on big festival days could come into play, things like that. Thinking back, she's high equine science things, so the veterinary side of things, the welfare side of things. Um, she could be kind of ambassador role to start improving, weighing room facilities for female jockeys.
Yeah.
Have a legacy. I mean, how many sports are in Andy Murray's legacy in Britain? How great is that? In grassroots level, maybe not good, but you see Jack Draper, world number 4, world number 5 in tennis. Maybe he's inspiring stars that way. So it'll be tricky to assess what she'll do, but whatever she does, she'll, really take a good hand at it.
Nah, she absolutely will. Obviously, just a word as well. I played hard in the Gold Cup, like the wee injection there. Because if you watch that race back, which I did a couple of days ago, Manel Lando looks to be going again the way he did the year before, and just that wee. I think it's the second last of the last. Just the way she takes it and goes on to win that. Wins that with 13 lengths. You would never have thought that two out. She would have won that race with that
Yeah,
far.
I think he was comfortably on the best horse on the day there because Minolando had his day and she picked wrong that year, but then stuck with Faith Appletard. But I mean, even Appletard, before when he blew that handicap apart at the Cheltenham Festival, the novices race, you were kind of onto a good thing down the line. But yeah, there's quite a few, Manila Times being a big one. Minolando through the years,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, sustaining that honeysuckle. Henry de Bromhead, he kind of had these kind of pocket of 4, 5, 6 brilliant horses the year that Honeysuckle was there, and just had enough to kind of supplement and mop up the big races and the big days, and you need a jockey with a lot of personality and bravery to execute it as well, and she did that more often than not.
Punchestown, obviously, the last pod we did, I think we recorded it in the Thursday morning, so we missed Thursday's racing. But like, just the kind of horses won. Tia Hooper went and won the Stairs Hurdle. Looked back to his best match, but over kind of improved from what he did at Cheltenham. I think we have to start with the Champion Hurdle. State Man winning that. Constitution Hill, well beaten. I remember texting you after the race. He looks finished to me. Like, at that level, I just thought it was one of those where just the light went out with him completely.
Yeah, I mean, the jumping's a question mark, and whether he can overcome that and see the engines there, but it wasn't. I mean, is it just a bad run at the end of the season? Possibly, but he was reluctant to even start, and I don't think he'd have been happy at any point.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the pace lifted again, the big mistake came where he jumped markedly out to his left, and it's just all gone to pot with him. Really, it's been a write off of the second half of campaign. He's now rated down to 162, which is now reflecting on his kind of decline in terms of his mark. Any kind of summer bid in the flat has now been shelved as a result of it because there's
Yeah,
obviously serious work that needs to be done under the bonnet with him um, to get him back, and it looks a long way back now, even longer than it was before because that was definitive evidence that even if he does semi iron out his jumping, his engine's not going to get him out of bother, and it's not really even going to make him remotely competitive. So yeah, and I was quite surprised that Nicky Henderson was really out quickly to go. Oh, we'll have a summer back. You'll definitely see him back. I don't understand why you'd put yourself.
mm-hmm.
You've got a summer off to kind of relax, think about it. Like nobody's going to be talking about it really, unless you're like us, where we've been off for a wee time and we've got to kind of reflect on it a little bit. But people are in Royal Ascot mode, people are in flat mode. The summer jumps are summer jumps. Just take some space out for
Yeah,
yourself. Give yourself a chance. I don't really understand why you're putting yourself under the gun immediately. Say, oh yeah, you will be, but well, just give yourself a chance to identify something, and then maybe be a bit more bullish. Nobody's really going to ask you it until September, October time.
yeah,
Give yourself the chance and time to kind of look at it. He'll be on his summer break now, and if that reinvigorates him and see him, and then we'll probably get an answer when he's galloping and schooling away. But yeah, what he's done in a race course last three, 4 times, it doesn't inspire any confidence in going forward. I mean, I think he could offer me 33, 40 to 1 champion hurdle. I wouldn't be interested, sadly.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those where it's kind of sad the regression, but it's not. I mean, you've seen his jumpings let him down. I think he makes a terrible mistake at the first hurdle, and it's one of those where
He
you're just
balloons
like,
it. He
yeah,
ballooned it as if he's been schooling over fences
yeah,
recently,
and you
and
think
that's how he's taking it.
yeah,
So I mean, is he really really seeing these hurdles as properly as he should be? There was a kind of theory where the Irish hurdles were suiting better. Well, it just didn't, And then the other big mistake that happened was when the pace lifted again, where he
yeah,
where he kind of basically jumped way out to his left. So it was he was meeting them long, short. He was ballooning them. He was getting tight into them. He was jumping them left. He was jumping them right. It really was kind of an aberration of everything. And and then you're kind of thinking, well, how good it really is he now? Because he's actually going to get round, but kind of get out of trouble with it. And the response off the bridle was non-existent as well. And if you look at the start, he almost planted.
yeah,
And he gave away the initiative anyway, the race, because State Man was going to go out in front. I expected Constitutional to probably try and take him on from the front, and that might have set it up for a Cargies. But in the end, the back State Man because he went out in 94. It was surprising that Constitutional got backed into 8 to 13 as well. I mean, I don't see how people could row in at that
I think
short
I had a bet in it. I definitely didn't have a bet.
again. And the other problem is that you'll have the new line, the young horse on the scene that you won't really kind of get that easy grade one at Newcastle anymore reappearance next season. He's probably going to be taken on there. So yeah, he's now there'll be a new kind of British horse on the scene that's well, you could argue that he's surpassed him already because I think he's rated 159, 160, and the Constitutionals are 162 recently. They're on sufferance, really. At the moment, you wouldn't really even rate him in the in the 120 bracket. That's how bad that run was. So, he won't have a kind of confidence restoring race there anymore because the Grade 1 2 mile hurdle division maps out itself, really, unless they try and go down in grade and do something in that regard. But what they need to do in the main is give himself a chance over the summer.
Two horses I'm really excited about for next season, and I did back to make amends for the Cheltenham Blackmore's Final Demand in the Lambert. Thought both sensational at Punchestown on Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, Lambo was very impressive turning around Poneros. Could have been closer, who made a mistake at the last. Won by 4 lengths, and yeah, very exciting horse. Probably should have won at Cheltenham, regardless. But I mean, Nick Anderson, yeah, are having a kind of really kind of sticky time of it until he pops up and won quite well. So there's so much more under him. They're undecided whether he'll go fences or hurdling. I don't know if it's going to be a Sergino type thing where they wonder what happens to Constitution Hill and send Lambert that way. But the owners are state man, so I think they'd be pretty keen to press on and go over fences because he certainly looks like a chaser. It's just whether that kind of 4-5 season, but he looks like a generational talent to me. And he always has since his debut. He has that kind of striking, imposing personality, and I think he can consider himself unlucky that he's not unbeaten in his life. So yeah, I think he's one of the most exciting horses to take out next season for absolutely sure.
And Final Demand again, like just made like the way he took it from the front, just the yellow clay, like I think obviously looked to be a really heavy fall. Hopefully he comes out of that okay. Vibes are that he's fine, but the way Final Demand just took that race, and he's a real exciting horse next season over fences.
Yeah, they bounced out Made all and stuck to that trip, and he showed his versatility. The thing in Punchestown was reasonably well watered. It was slow. You saw it. They were much more effective on it than at Cheltenham, and I think that suited him a little bit to get his toe in and get helped a lot of Willie Mullins horses that were able to keep going for the rest of the season. They were a bit late coming in. They had an unusually slightly hit and miss Christmas, but they've reaped the rewards of it at the end of the season because they're still running the races. Yellow Clay was a bit disappointing. You could argue that might pin the form down, but yeah, it just looked like a dream run, a dream race, on a dream horse, really. Everything went right. His jumping was quite quick. And yeah, I mean, between him, Yasmin DeVoe, and the Brown Advisory would be quite some sight next season because I think they both seem to be going over fences.
That's going to be the jump conversation for a couple of months at least unless any kind of sensational news comes out. But we'll kind of we'll move to kind of flat mode now. The Guineas obviously were that weekend a Punchestown. We'll start with the 2000 Guineas. We'll kind of do Field of Gold kind of separately. Obviously, it will feature in the conversation with this race, but Ruling Court obviously won the 2000 Guineas. Brilliant weekend for Godolphin as well. Ruling Court definitely looks to be a Derby type. How good was he here, and how good do you think he can be moving forward?
I was really impressed with the front three in the 2000 Guineas. It was the right three. They put 4 lengths between third and fourth, really, and they all look good. Is it Ruling Court a better track position and Field of Gold, and that's what won him the day. I was impressed with his turn of foot from 2 to 1. Is that I did the two falling pole, the one falling pole, and then when he hits the rising ground, he's just got enough scope to hang on. And he wasn't stopping the line either, so it looked a really good race. The right horses fought out the finish, and yeah, I kind of mapped him out as a Derby type before being a Guineas. The fact that he's still been able to win a Guineas is probably testament to his ability. Now, given how that form seems to be working out, I think it's probably surprised he's not favourite for the Derby. I know the stamina doubts is there, but I think there's a lot of mass about him. He didn't win a Guineas, but he was untried after the Guineas and ended up getting 12 with kind of similar ride to what Roland Court got in the Guineas. He probably 3/4 back, travel, come outside, and just hopefully that he quickens on, because you do need tactical speed around Epsom to deal with its cambers. So he'd definitely have that. He's a very well balanced horse. So yeah, it's a bit of a doubt. He's probably an archetypal 1.25 mile horse, really, but he's good enough to do both. Sometimes you get these top class horses that can be very trip versatile. He might be one of them. So yeah, he did it. He did it really well, and the ride was very good. Shadow Light, it's like a Commonwealth Cup type
Yeah.
horse, probably. And Field to Go the third comes out and wins Irish equivalent, very very easily. They're all going to be three horses that are definitely going to be ones to follow for the rest of their careers.
Field of Gold was obviously the one to take out. I text you literally like seconds after the race, and I said Ruling Court probably like just outstayed him, and it wasn't like a stamina test. It was just the way the kind of race went. There wasn't a mention of the ride until John Godson's interview, and then after that, Twitter's obviously a weird place after a race because a lot of people are talking with their wallet. With Field of Gold and the Guineas, we'll obviously touch on the English Guineas, then we'll talk on the Irish Guineas because it's obviously different jockeys. How much was it a poor ride for the jockey? Do you think that was the reason he get beat?
Yeah, I'd say it was a poor ride. It was an average one, and it was beaten by a great one. But when it's a classic and there's
Mm-hmm.
big potential on the line, the trainer's on favourite, and the trainer's kind of basically said he was 85% fit in the Craven. He's going to come on for it. Son of Kingman, it's basically code for this is a really, really good horse, and he should win. And he's back to the favourite, and he should win. And with a bit better luck and a bit better position and a bit better ride, he would have won. Closing the line, don't think he outstayed. He, the tempo caught him cold for two strides, and it caught out the jockey as much as he did, because he was responding to the line. He's kind of challenged away from him as well. And yeah, I mean, they've just nicked some ground. The front pair have nicked some ground off a pace that wasn't overly quick at the right time and been able to hold on. Now, there wasn't two horses of that calibre that were in the Irish equivalent,
Mm-hmm.
but he was running a bit handier that day, and there was less kind of nonsense. But yeah, I mean, there was just maybe a little bit overconfidence at the back, and it was different conditions than the Craven, and I think that's where my kind of sympathy does run out, because you've got to understand that there's no headwind here. The better opposition, everything at Newmarket Guineas weekend wins from the front practically. I mean, and you've got to identify like, well, who are my main dangers in this race? And the two main dangers, two only dangers, in truth, really, were the Godolphin pair,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the draw, you're nowhere near Shadow of Light, so you need to be Ruling Court. You look at his speed and you go, well, we know he's going to stay well. You can't concede a horse first run like that, and it's amplified when it's a Guineas. And John Gosden afterwards, he was being polite with his tone, but he was quietly, absolutely simmering underneath that interview.
What do you think about the interview the day after, where Matt Chapman and Kieran Schumacher Chapman's basically asking Schumacher. I think Chapman came out and defended him on the Saturday night on social media, and then they did the interview on the Sunday, and it was one of those where, like, fair play to Kieran Schumacher for doing this, because like not a lot of people would do this, but I didn't think it was a good idea
No,
because I
nothing
don't
to
think
gain
it
out
made
of
a
it.
blind bit of difference to public reaction. It doesn't change the result. To me, I thought after that it was just, yeah, this isn't looking good.
Yeah, it was kind of a save face kind of thing, wasn't it? Really, I don't think there was much to gain, but even if the Gosens maybe went to back him, you're the stable jockey. You're riding for a judgment, big firm, big race day, big breeding implications as well. I mean, and that made amends a couple of weeks ago, but again, he looks better on the CV than an Irish one. Um, I think everyone kind of knew, and I think you're probably like, oh, well, not a terrible ride, definitely not a good one.
Hmm.
Did it get him beat? Yeah, was it the difference between winning and losing? Yeah, probably, but you get over it, and then when you come back out the following day and then say something about it, it just brings it all back up again. Um, and yeah, he was probably in a hiding to nothing, and which was a shame because he was riding at like 29% beforehand. He was doing well in all these trials. Um, it's a bit like passing all those nabs at school in the prelims and then the big exam. You've for whatever reason, it's not you've not got the grade that you want, and
Yeah.
the ramifications of that is you don't make the grade and you're out. And to be honest, the flat game is more brutal. It's quicker. The margins are between victory and defeat are invariably a lot smaller, so therefore split decision making in the saddle will make more of a difference with results. With jumps, I think it's more casual. I think poorer rides are much more tolerated there, mainly because the obstacles are in the way and they're more putting themselves more in obvious harm's way,
Hmm.
and and things like that. And the horse seems to get more blame for its technique rather than maybe tactically bad rides. When the flat, there's really no hiding place, no excuse. If you're caught napping, they're away and gone. Or if you've overdone the tactics and the speed fractions, you can just see the speed monitor in red for like, and you're just going, "What are you doing?" And the horse
Hmm.
finishes eighth, ninth. So it's so exacerbated and it's all happening quick, and it's really hard to correct things because once you've made that initial move that's probably wrong, it's probably going to cost you the race regardless. Sometimes the horse is so good that it gets out of trouble, and Field of Gold did try to do that, but I did back Field of Gold, and when they quickened into the dip, I did kind of think you've not gone soon enough because he was never really, really getting there. What made it worse was he's always closing. Um, and I think that kind of dampened things in because he's then oh, well, if we want to go make amends in Irish Guineas now, instead of kind of easing them down and accepting your fate and go, oh, could I made a mess of this? We'll just finish third or something, and finish 2 lengths third, and we'll go to the Curragh and better Nick. He's tried to pull out the fire, they almost got there somehow. It's only beaten half a length at the end.
Yeah.
Um, and now you've kind of maybe get the train on your back as well because well, actually, you're making my job harder to get to right that wrong as well because we're now pressing him to recover a little bit more than we expected because it was either the plan was to win that and go straight to Ascot and not go to the Irish Guineas, or if you get somebody get beat there and go Irish and then Royal Ascot to shoehorn in. So yeah, it's tricky for him. And then there was kind of I think he got a 4-day ban the following week for one ride. He lost She's Perfect in the stewards room in the French Guineas. He was on
Yeah.
board that. It then all threatened to go wrong with him a little bit. So yeah, on a human level, you do have to feel sorry for him. But the great thing with racing is there are other days and that there will be opportunities because particularly like maybe the handicap. There's second and third strings at the Goslings that can pop up in your favour. And their best rider available policy a lot of times they won't be available. Ryan Moore will be on the Aidan O'Brien horse, or William Beauty will be on the Charlie Appleby Godolphin horse, or Tom Markham would be on, or Oisin Murphy would be on the Andrew Balding horse, and Tom Markham would be on the William Haggis horse, and it would be Kieran Schumart that would still be riding, the main John Gosling horse there. So, in the actual grand scheme of things, there isn't a massive change going on there, and maybe the trainer should maybe use experience and maybe kind of protected him a little bit more than he did in the end.
Well, it then obviously makes amends really well in the Irish Guineas last weekend, where again he just like Colin Keane obviously takes the ride again, like the best available option. Colin Keane is probably as good as it gets at the moment, just certainly in Ireland. And that looked more like him. And the first thing you're thinking is he could go on to Royal Ascot. I'd imagine that's the plan for him next. And
Yeah, I mean, St James's Palace, it would be odds on for that. He is head and shoulders above the rest of the 3-year-olds. Will he ever reoppose Roland Court again? Well, if Roland Court does what he does in the Derby, probably not, because he might be sticking more mile and a half. They might in an eclipse or June International where they can both.
mhm.
I think they can both easily cope with 10 furlongs. I think that could actually be their optimum. One's more of a mile, or one's more than a mile and a half horse down the line. But yeah, I mean, Curragh, a bit of rain probably helped him a little bit. More conventional track probably helped him a little bit. It was an easier race. More forward tactics. There was definitely nothing left to chance or overconfidence, and yeah, he did it really well. He skipped clear from them. I think Hot as Hell's probably a decent enough horse to do that. Tim was quite good. There wasn't really anything of the Godolphin pair caliber in there, but he's done it really nicely. He takes an age to pull up. He hits the line really impressively. He looks like he's got more to offer. He should take the St James's Palace with fairly minimal fuss. The sharp track, if he gets caught for something with speed in it, then again, he might be asked a similar question that he was in the British Guineas, where tactically you'd have to be alert to anybody kind of trying to steal a march when they slingshot round that bend in quick ground, because it is quite a sharp test. Yeah, and then I think you'd imagine it'd be like, depends if they stick mile route, Sussex Stakes and
Sussex,
things like
yeah.
that. I mean, I would rather see him in an eclipse personally. I think he'd be a better horse over 10 furlongs. I think he's that good. I think he could be generationally that good. Yeah, I think he's a very, very exciting horse. Very exciting. So yeah, he's got a massive future ahead of him. But I mean, Colin Keane best field ride. I mean, just the way the jockey game is, Colin Keane get absolutely slaughtered for his ride in White Birch in the Tattersalls Gold Cup
Yes.
the same weekend. You
Mhm.
know, it happens. It happens to the best. You might struggle to see examples, but you'd be certain that every single jockey in the world, Ryan Moore, Frankie Dettori, when his sabbatical with Gosson, they made mistakes and lost races, some big ones as well. You've just got to accept it. Some individuals accept it better than better than other people.
Yep, absolutely. We'll go into the fillies on Sunday. Obviously, Desert Flower justifying the hype, winning the 1,000 guineas well, looks very much an Oaks type. I think you can. I'm just looking here just now, and the price for the Oaks is 2-1 favourite. She looks to be a special talent. Lake Victoria was sixth in that, then goes on to win the Irish Guineas last Sunday. We'll start with Desert Flower. How good is she, and how excited are you about her?
I'm not as excited at her as the Colts. I thought it was a weak race. I thought she didn't really need to improve from a Phillies mile run to win it. In flight to 25-1 outsider that's raced multiple times, rated 102. Would really have made a big race out of things if she was drawn in the better half of the track. She was nudged out to win, a length, and she probably is more of an Oaks horse, and I
Think
think
she'll
she
win the
probably.
Oaks?
Yeah, well, I mean, 2-1's not cool because she's got so much in all known form, but I'm not convinced she's trained on from 2 to 3. I think she's a 117 horse. That's her rating. I think if there's anything there with significant potential and progress in behind, I think I can see her getting beat. I don't think she's a certainty. She's a right favourite without doubt. 5 from 5 unbeaten, but I think horses are beginning to catch her up. I mean, Late Victoria 6, badly needed the run, barely got there. Got within 2.5 lengths. A lot of them got with it. El Watin was fourth, cut out the running. That was only a second run of her life. Got
Mhm.
within 2 lengths of her. And I mean, there are horses in there, the O'Briens, Penny Hawk, Gael, Whirl. These kind of things that could get to her. It's hard to identify one that could beat her, but I, I don't think it's as cut as dry as the initial look in the form book would suggest. Yeah, she's got it there at hand, but I don't see her getting better than that. Maybe she hasn't needed to show it, but I didn't see anything in the Guineas that she's come on in any kind of significant way. Usually, the Oak State is well watered, so that should suit her. And she still might end up being too good for them, and the others might still be too raw. But it was surprising that I mean, they looked like second or third finish in the Irish Guineas. Yeah, and they were nowhere behind Lake Victoria. I mean, she improved massively. I think Lake Victoria's run in the Irish Guineas was a lot better than even the winners' run in the Guineas.
Coronation Stakes for Lake Victoria, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. And I feel the goal should take out James Barnes, and she should probably take the coronation out of those. Zorgana might have other ideas because the French horse goes there, and she's perfect. So I think the coronation might actually be a better race in both of the Guineas.
Okay. We'll move into kind of looking at kind of trials where it's been pretty much dominated by Aidan O'Brien. Like he's won a lot of them quite well. The one that was obviously the eye catching one that we were all interested in was the Lion in Winter in the Dante. It was a race, for those who don't know, I was on holiday. I actually went to watch. It was the only race I watched the whole week was the Dante. I didn't even see the Lockinge. I was excited to see what happened. What do you think? First of all, we'll go to the Lion in Winter. Like, what do you think of it? Do you think he badly needed the run, or was there maybe other factors that were the reason he didn't win that?
I mean, Batley, he was behind. He's had setbacks. He seems tricky to train, and he shaped as if he did well. Looked a bit big, and he was mad fresh the first quarter mile, and to only be beaten 4 and a bit in 6 is probably not a bad effort. But I mean, I think the winner's probably been criminally underrated in Pride of Arras because the Beckett horse in the Beckett yard have tended to need it. So I think that's why he was largely ignored rather than his profile. Um, he won it well, and I can see why with the Brian connection you'd maybe take in his 2-year-old form and see that he's possibly trained on enough to think that yeah, I can take a chance at 5-6 to 1 for the Derby. Now 5-2, 3 to 1, I think he can be pretty much ignored. And you look at what the favourite did that day, and you think he's 9-2, and he's sitting there 9-2 with ruling court. I would have both of them above the O'Brien pair, personally.
Okay.
If you had a Guineas winner trained by O'Brien and a Dante winner trained by O'Brien, what price would they be?
Do you think it is more like because if you look at the Derby market just now, like there's actually a market for what Ryan Moore will ride in the Derby, 4-6 Delacroix and 11-10 Lion in Winter. I wouldn't touch either of them until I knew because that's a confidence boost to me. What's going to go? I think the Derby's a very hard race at the moment. Like I don't have any sort of strong opinion on it.
Not really interested in the O'Brien horses in the Derby. I mean, whatever Ryan Moore rides, I mean, at price, I wouldn't be. I think Delacroix is a classic kind of solid Leopardstown Derby trial winner. He's the one out the market principles where you'd think, yeah, he's definitely going to be top 3.
Okay.
He's that kind of solid improver, but I think he's more likely to win an Irish Derby than a Derby. I think he's your Brooms of the world, he's your Los Angeleses of the world. To me, that I think that's what he is. I think he's a bona fide place horse around Epsom.
Okay.
It's whether you think the Lion of Winter is a top notcher. Is he an Augusta Rodan that can bounce back? Is he a City of Troy that can bounce back? I don't think he's of that ilk. I think stamina would be. He kind of prove his stamina in the way he boxed on and never went wrong from at York. I don't think he's. I don't think you see an absolutely rejuvenated character come Epsom, and you certainly can't take 5-2 about it. So I don't think he's of Augusta Rodan, City of Troy's league. So I mean, I would be all over. I'd be split between ruling court and Pride of Arras.
Okay.
You're getting better form and you're getting
Yeah.
better prices, and there's less to prove, really.
Into the Oaks, obviously, you mentioned a couple of these there. Minnie Hawk, Giselle, and Whirl all won trials for Aidan O'Brien. If you don't fancy Desert Flower, any of them appealing to you as potential Oaks
I
horses?
think this is harder to assess because you're weighing up against, a proven form in Yardstick that's there, but I think one that you can definitely get at to a ton of fillies that'll just have plenty of potential, but the form isn't there. I think the one at Chester, Mini Hawk, for instance, is a classic example. I think she's got absolutely tons to find in the book. Could she get there? Possibly. Is she more of a stayer? Probably. And can she get to the high one teens to win this quick enough? I doubt it. I wouldn't have a second favourite. I prefer. I know Gael beat nothing in the Lingfield Oaks. It was a 3-runner race, but I think she's probably the horse with the most potential if she can handle it. She's just maybe a bit too keen at the moment. But I think if there's enough horses in here with a truer pace, and if she settles, I think she might be the one with the most potential in the field.
I
Now,
think I really
six,
like Falakea.
mark.
I don't know what the plan is with her, but I thought she put in a really good performance in Newmarket Falakea for Owen Burrows.
Seems to be French Guineas, yeah, and that form's working out quite well. But they seem to be looking at supplementing Elwatine
Okay.
for this and sending Falakea to France. That was the last update, but yeah, she's definitely on the radar because that's good form. It's working out that listed pretty poorly. We've seen subsequent winners coming that in behind Upton Grade as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was very good. It's just whether I don't think they want to go from a mile to a mile 4 that quickly with her. I know in Burrows the way he trains is very kind of patient approach. So I don't think she'll force it. And it's around Epsom, which can be a kind of a tricky track. So they might not do that with her. I mean, I thought Worrell was a good winner. The Musadora drifted massively on the day to a ridiculous price, really. And they seem to be now coming round to think they're running her in the Oaks now, which I think would be a good move. I think she's definitely got a chance. So out of them again, I'd probably be slightly against the front two of the market and think maybe Worrell and Gael are the two to look at the moment. There'll be outsiders in there that can come into this. Like your Elwatine came from nowhere to kind of be fourth in the Guineas, and people had her mapped out. There'll definitely be sleepers in there that'll take their chance in it. And if you think you've got a filly, you've got potential, and if you think that it'll improve, a stone or something, then you might not be as far away as you think, because For All Desert Flower sets a high standard and one that an all known form, not a lot, if anybody is really getting near. It isn't insurmountable, and there are horses that will begin to catch it up. So it's got to be factored in as well a little bit.
We'll go to the Lockinge. Obviously, like what turned out to be a very good race. Lead Artist winning for the Gosdens, beating Dancing Gemini, Rosalian, and Notable Speech. Looked a very good race. I think I think there was a lot of people that didn't fancy either of the top three in the market getting beat, but Lead Artist winning for Oisin Murphy. Looking at the race and looking possibly towards the Queen Anne, where I'd imagine a few of these horses will meet again. What do you think?
I think Rosalian was the one to take out, and I can see why he's favourite.
Okay.
Notable Speech didn't get by him. He's just told he just needed the run a little bit. They've only been beaten 2 and a bit. Two race fit horses that are very good. I mean, Dancing Gemini probably got undone by the quick ground more than Lead Artist, who likes fast ground. Now, Queen Anne, First State Royal Ascot, I don't think he'll get fast ground. I don't think he'll be as fast as that. So that might help Dancing Gemini a lot to come back into it. But the way Notable Speech and Rosalian, they still have higher ratings than them, and we're only beating 2 and a bit in behind. I think the third and fourth, I'd expect them to turn it around. The first and second come Queen Anne Day, and I'd expect Rosalian to win out in that battle between them. I just think the race is suit. But I mean, it's interesting because they're having maybe kind of a dearth of milers for about a decade or so. We've got 4 in here that are potentially top class with
What, if
different
Fortuna make
guineas and
that
things.
5? Would you think of her at the weekend?
Yeah. She could take her chance there. It's a high class mare and one in the weekend as well. And yeah, she'd be entitled to take her chance, and she'd definitely a flying ointment. But all her form against Colts hasn't been that good. She's more kind of dominated
Hmm.
her own sex really. Once he put her in Colts, she's kind of been found out a little bit, and I suspect that might happen again.
Okay. Also on Sunday we had Los Angeles winning the Gold Cup at the Curragh as well. You mentioned about the ride on White Birch. Los Angeles, I think, is kind of that, not maybe not the superstar that City of Troy was, but it's certainly going to train on and be a very kind of competent horse moving forward, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't win the Derby, was third, but you know, I think I backed him for the Derby each way, and he hit the frame 13-2. It was just a little bit too soon in his development and around that track. The arc didn't go to plan. Everything went wrong from there. And everything went right there. You know, he's 3 for 3 at the Curragh now, and he's kind of an old fashioned scrapper from the front. You know, his resolution to win is very very good. You know, he's going to be a very hard horse to head. If he wins a Prince of Wales Stakes, you know, he'd probably have to do it in a fashion like, you know, when State Arrest did it back in the year, where, you know, it's probably not going to be pretty, but he could definitely grind it out. You know, Anmac came cruising at the back, couldn't get by him. White Birch couldn't get a run. But the way he generalistically finds means, you know, it wasn't a given that if White Birch gets here, you know, he gets fended off again. That happened in the Moors Bridge where Los Angeles beat him. You know, it could have happened again. Um, So yeah, I mean, is he an absolute top notcher? No, but he's a very honest, reliable horse between 10 and 12 furlongs that you'd need to give a lot of respect, and he hits low 120s pretty much every time, and that's still very, very high class form. So yeah, he's a solid barometer for any Group One form going forward, and yeah, he was a good winner that day. Yeah, all right, he had track position a lot of favour, but you know he's still got to go out and grind up the hill and do it, and he did.
And kind of like we've kind of covered the two big Epsom races. We've obviously got the Coronation Cup. We'll maybe cover that next week as well. Killandigan's quite a short price favourite for that. Royal Ascot Clues, because there's been a lot of races since the last time we've been on. A lot of exciting horses come out. 2-year-olds. Who's impressed you? Who's
Right, Albert Einstein, the way he's going about his business looks almost certainty in the Coventry.
okay?
I would say there's a lot of kind of Royal Ascot Day One, like it's looking up like more of a Cheltenham Festival Day One because I think they're going to get a lot of hot favourites that are going to be fancied. He's I think he's probably been outstanding juvenile so far. Yeah, I think him for the Coventry. I think it's going to be a good race. The one Calvert Road, it didn't win at Beverley, but it won the race. Shareholder did. Naval Light, I think it's named.
Okay.
I think 14, 16 to 1 each way for the Norfolk isn't bad because I can see him leaving that well behind. I think he might be quick enough to deal with that. So I thought he was interesting. And Trianmore of, yeah, I think they're probably going Chesham with him. I think he'll open up 2-1, but he's a good orphan horse. I think's really, really one to follow. And I suspect he'll go Chesham instead of Coventry. Probably scared off by Albert Einstein. So yeah, they are a few that I've quite liked so far.
Any other races at the Royal Ascot that you might have a fancy in?
Mike Cloud's been well found in the Royal Hunt Cup. There's no surprise. He's favourite. He shapes for Roger Varian as if he wants that. Um, I mean, we're going to talk about Kyprios later on, so
Yes.
I'll leave that alone. Thought Babush was pretty good Commonwealth Cup wise. I would probably prefer Shadow of Light if he goes there overall though. Just Gerlines' record generally across Britain isn't the strongest. Yeah, I think Inisheron's a bit
That
underrated
was
in
the
the
one I was going to bring up to you, yeah.
in the QE2 market. Really,
Hmm.
you know, I thought he would come on from his reappearance win. I just think he was a 3-year-old that found that kind of softer ground in a long season, kind of kind of affected him a little bit towards the tail end of it, and he's come back with the wind up, so he's probably not one that's ultra consistent, ultra reliable, but he's shaped as if he'd peak for that Royal Ascot Sprint. In the King Charles III picture, looks a bit murkier than the 6 furlong horse. I mean, it depends what this kind of Storm Boy does. If O'Brien's, where he kind of showed early boot in the weekend, clocked 40-mile-an-hour fractions.
Then he'll get another run into him by.
No, they won't get another run into him. I don't think. No, I mean it's the old kind of Merchant Navy ploy of you'll have one run, blow out, and Merchant Navy won that Greenlands, but come back and be it for the 6. And he hangs his head a lot like Merchant Navy. He kind of logs left, looking for company in the rail. It's Ian O'Brien's fitness-wise that he could leave that behind in 1461. It looks like a King Charles III horse to me rather than a 6 furlong horse. He's definitely got that early speed and maybe just needs that run to fully acclimatise into things, but he did back out of it and hang a little bit under pressure, which was odd. So yeah, and I don't think Magira was overly impressive in the Temple Stakes, but it's form that is enough to certainly put her in the picture. I wouldn't. I still think there's probably a big race in American Affair who found all sorts of bother and stopped tracking the winner and went across the other wrong side of the track, really, and it was a third quick run in the season, and you probably didn't see him to best effect. And something like a running style of a Royal Ascot might just suit these horses a little bit more. So yeah, in the King Charles III, you could. That looks like the big race where you could see the big kind of shock result, really, and it's no surprise when it comes to sprinters.
There was a horse in the States who I don't know if you've seen this actually. I'm into
Yeah,
actually
the Wesley Ward horse.
Yes, outfielder 4-1 for the Norfolk. Charles Darwin's obviously in there as well. Charles Darwin already looks a bit workmanlike for me. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a. And when they both ran on the same day, I was more taken by Albert Einstein.
yeah,
And then you thought Albert Einstein last weekend was maybe a bit more workmanlike, but when you see when everything run at Curragh, you needed to be pretty handy to it. I think he was in a pocket and he still managed to pull out and win and win quite well, top of the line. It was quite impressive. Charles Darwin maybe less so, but Aiden's juveniles, they're going to come on from that massively. It's just whether he's a Norfolk horse with all that speed. Is he really going to set that, or do they deliberately push him into like a Windsor Castle or something and be thankful for that? But there's horses like First Approach lurking in a race like that, and there's probably plenty of Brits, and you're getting your Wathnan horses. I mean, the one at Ayr, for instance, that won
yeah,
Underwriter. Now I've got Ayr every meeting for that race, and I wasn't as taken with him as the other Archie Watson horses, Electrolyte and Army Ethos, and they were second to Coventry. So, and they were twice the price as well. And I was kind of going, I was actually walking back from the finishing line to the parade ring going, I wonder what price I would take about him for a Coventry. So maybe 20s, 16s, and then I saw 12s and thought, no. I mean, it was one of those maidens that it actually was a good maiden for the level. I think he beat the right horse in second. It was Brian Elson's. It was Reese fit and improving from a couple of runs at Beverley. But he was 4-7. He went out to 11-10. There was doubts about the stable form, so he could leave that behind. But when you did look at the ring, you're thinking, yeah, he's head and shoulders above these. But I didn't really see the kind of strength and substance of a normal kind of Royal Ascot 2-year-old. So I'd have my doubts about him at the prices. I think Wathnan, I think James Doyle might ride one of their other horses in that race. I wouldn't dismiss him. He'll probably come back out in the market, but yeah, I mean, they bumped into River Tiber one year, didn't they? I think they're bumping into a similar type of monster than Albert Einstein anyway, so it might end up being a thankless task. But yeah, there's a good few that are going out of that. I mean, the Wesley Ward horse that did that it's going to be interesting him coming over. I think you're going to. I think there's a few. There's actually a few that are coming over from different countries for a Queen Anne, for instance. So I mean that could be the race of the whole
Yeah,
thing
good.
for once. It's usually the kind of Ascot's watering policies, kind of knackered American type horses now. They don't really hang on. I mean, since Crimson Advocate and Campanelle, there's not really much of got in the frame. They show early speed and then they kind of don't see it out. Royal Ascot, is a stiff finish, even fast ground. So I think that would be the issue for him. But no, there'll still be horses that will have to come out and do something as well. So yeah, there's definitely a good few to follow.
We'll end with we started the show talking about a legend of the game. We'll end the show by talking about a legend of the game. Kiprios has obviously been retired. Aidan O'Brien's quote, I'm paraphrasing here, but I think one of the hardest horses ever to keep right. I don't think a lot of people are surprised after the market move that we saw after his last race. And first of all, like from for a horse that's won so many races, there was a point maybe about 2 or 3 years ago where I mean it didn't look good that we were ever going to see him again. And what he's done after that's been remarkable.
No, yeah, he was in the battle to kind of save his life, really. I
Yeah.
think, and waxing lyrical about him last year when he won the Gold Cup, and to come back, all good steers kind of are somehow able to do that. But the great thing about all these steers, like all St George, Stradivarius, they're hugely intelligent horses
Yeah.
that keep some, back for himself to keep them going, and I think that's what he was kind of doing in his two Leopardstown outings, where he knows exactly how much to give to win, but to try and keep him going and hold himself back. He doesn't do it that impressively sometimes. Yeah, he was quite slow to come to hand as a 2-year-old and 3-year-old. Didn't really do much. Got injured, came back, and really dominated the Sting division. And any trip, any tactics, his versatility was remarkable. You've seen him win kind of from on the speed and fastly run races, off the speed and slowly run races. Position wise, any ground was immaterial to him. He could really kind of do it all when he wanted to do it all. When he won the Cadran, where he hung across the track and still won by half the track anyway. Um, yeah, I mean, any assignment wasn't too difficult for him. But maybe the one regret is we didn't see him in an arc. I think he had the ability to play a serious hand in it. Remember when all of St George went really close and O'Brien's kind of blanket year. I mean, I think he would have went as close as him. And maybe the year Alpinista ran in it, they could have had a real good shot at it. Definitely think he would have placed in one. But again, that would have maybe asked too much of a question on what he's back, and yeah, he deserves his retirement. And yeah, the market move was a bit
Did you
smelly.
tell? I didn't watch the race. Could you tell after the race if something up? Like,
No, I mean it's Savile, but I mean it was. You saw his kind of reappearance run that was workmanlike. You think, okay,
mm,
leave that behind a little bit more in his second run, and he didn't really. It was kind of the same. And you're kind of thinking they might have wanted to see a bit more. And then Ian O'Brien came out afterwards, said he was feeling something in the parade ring, so he was maybe a shade uncomfortable, and hence why that market move happened. But it didn't correct itself as quickly as most people thought, and I think that's why there's maybe a bit more to it. And has he aggravated something? It turns out there is. So yeah, there's and when you've won as much as he does, there's definitely no need to
no, certainly not.
to, to risk it too much.
It obviously means the Gold Cup market is very interesting at the moment. Illinois, who we have seen come back, his seasonal reappearance is now 11-8. The French horse that won at the weekend, Candellari, 7-2. You've got Sweet William, Jan Brigall, Trawler Man at 6-1 and 14-1 the rest. Does that market interest you?
It does. I guess it's a favourite that I have got no interest in
Okay, I thought I'm surprised at that.
whatsoever.
Okay.
Illinois won't stay, will he? Did he
I,
stay in the Ledger?
no, he didn't.
How's he going to stay 2 mile 4 in open company in a Gold Cup?
Yeah, I think
He is a mile. He should be running a Coronation Cup to be.
yeah,
He's a high class mile and a half horse.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised
You
that
see it, but they're trying to just shoehorn these horses into staying champions. I don't think they'll stay. So I mean, he's just there because he's a high class horse that's coming through the ranks, and you think, yeah. I mean, Jan Bruegel's more likely to outstayed him in the Ledger, but
Um,
his reappearance run was not good. Okay, it was over 1 mile too, which would be insufficient, but he won all that trip twice last year on the same track, so it shouldn't have been that much of an issue. And the horse that beat him get whacked in the Moorsbridge, and the way he carried his hand left suggested that he might have been feeling the effects from the Ledger. So you have to even question the bare Ledger form, even though Illinois came out, did his thing around Chester like Holly and O'Brien horses do. The trip would have to be a kind of a massive doubt, and surely the bet in the race is the horse that was second to Kyprios last year by a length, beat everything else by 5 or 6. It runs tonight at Sandown, and it's Trawlerman.
okay.
Maybe doesn't win as if he does, but I mean, the Gossens training for Ascot. The big favourite, Big Danger's out, and he gave him a fright last year,
Mm-hmm.
winning a length. And Sweet William is a point short on the market, and he's got 5 lengths to find in the big day. He's 7-1 now. After tonight, he might be 4-1. And in my opinion, given I don't think Illinois would stay, he should be favourite.
What about his run at Maidan? Do you rule that out?
Well, Keelan Schumacher was on board. No, I'm kidding. He didn't go fast enough. He didn't go fast enough up top, and they just kind of all, came and got him. It was Keelan Schumacher was on the time before that, but he didn't go fast enough.
Yeah,
William Buick didn't get there on time. So
because
he
there was
gave him
another Godolphin horse
way
that
too
won that,
much,
wasn't it? It was
way too much to
the
do.
Sousa horse. What was that? What was the horse's name? I can check. I've got Google.
It's Maidan form, so yeah,
Yeah,
but
the By Future.
yeah, they just 1 year they didn't go quick enough up front, and the other year they gave themselves too much to do at the back. And he's a horse that leads, so I think this run tonight at Sandown should bring him on from that. It should make him sharper for it.
You
And
backed him yet?
absolutely,
Yeah,
and the double Sandown double tonight, and the
very good.
and the goal. I think he's an outstanding bet. So I don't think he's on the downgrade. I think the way Gossens train horses, they peak for this meeting or Champions Day, where he did beat Kyprios in Champions Day back in the day, and
Yeah,
that those are two pieces of form that are head and shoulders above everything else in the field. And if you trust the trainer to get it right, it's all about, it'll all be down to William Buick setting the correct fractions. Yeah, there's sleepers in there. The French horse is a potential sleeper, but he's not done much outside his own backyard. This will be a bit different for him, and the rest of the horses don't look great. I don't really think Ian O'Brien's got a ready-made replacement that naturally fits the bill.
I think
Illinois
he wanted. I think Continuous was that.
doubts.
I think
Continuous
Continuous.
is
He's
gone at
gone.
the game,
Yeah,
and he wouldn't be the first horse, to run in ledgers and things like that don't quite kick on for whatever reason. So yeah, I think he's a pretty good shout at the moment. Trollerman at 670. I think he's eights at Ladbrokes in places. So
okay.
it's whether you think he's as good as he is. He's a 7-year-old, but it's all these. It's the same horses that come back year and year again for
Mm.
this. Kiprio, Stradivarius, Royal St George, Big Orange. Not a lot else can I really get into. Subjectivist. He's been there, done it. I don't think he's on the downgrade. I don't think we've seen him to best effect because we want to see him at best effect at one place only, and that is Ascot.
Yeah.
He'll
So
stay. So I think there's a lot of doubts about the rest of him. He's a better horse than the stablemate Sweet William, I think. So yeah, in 2 mile 4 is probably his optimum because he was battling right to the line with Kyprios, and they're pulling away from him quite comfortably last year. So I mean, if he runs to 95% of that level like he did last year, he'll win.
okay. So we've got a vote for Trawler Man for the Ascot Gold Cup. Obviously, will be interesting to see what he does tonight. We will.
Cut that
Yeah,
out.
we will be back next week. We'll obviously do a preview of the big action at Epsom, and then after that, obviously Royal Ascot week will obviously be another interesting week. We will look at the racing. Callum, always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it's a really exciting time. Oaks, Derby, and then Royal Ascot. It's a couple of brilliant weeks ahead.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you all soon.